think it is time to start a new kit. So, it's time for this guy. So, we're going to pull this out and start looking at the F-15E Echo Strike Eagle. There's the clear parts. Ooh, what in the world would they do that for? I don't know if it shows on there or not, but there is a gigantic seam line running down the center of that cockpit. Oh, the tragedy. I'm actually going to have to figure out how to buff that out. Yeah, a dip in some future isn't going to help that. Okay. Excuse me. Well, now that this is dried over, well, it's been washed. Basically, all I did was I get a baking pan, like a shallow cookie sheet or baking pan that's got a lip about 1 inch tall all the way around it. And I fill it with really hot water, as hot as my hands can stand it. Hot water. And then I make sure it's plenty of soap. I use Dawn because of its degreasing abilities. And basically I soak each one for a couple of minutes, turn it over, make sure it gets in there pretty good, and then I go very lightly over it with a brand new sponge, because everybody knows your kitchen sponge needs to be replaced quite frequently. So hey, perfect opportunity. So I take my sponge and I ever so gently with the soft side, not the scrubber side, you don't need the Brillo side, and I basically just give it a light touch just to make sure I've got it all fairly clean. And that's what I did, and it did change the appearance of it. I doubt you can see it in the camera, but it changed the appearance ever so slightly because there was so much mold release on this kit. Okay, well, I got those parts cleaned up and they're on the priming table where they've been primed. Now I have one chair assembled. Just put that together a moment ago. Now I guess I'll demonstrate how I did that one with this one using my trusty Plastruck Bondine, which is pretty much just like everybody nowadays is using the, what is it, Tamiya Extra Thin. It's still liquid cement, so it's still going to act like liquid cement. It's just it dries. I mean, it dries just as fast. So I'm just getting it on there, making sure it's nice and moist when I actually go to stick them together. So let me try not to get any fingerprints on it or anything like that. Stupid Band-Aid is being a pain, which is awfully aggravating because it feels like I can't use my finger. So, because the little strings of my Band-Aid that are now starting to somewhat flail off are bound and determined to stick. So let me see if I can go in a little closer. Alright, just a little closer so my hand won't be in the way too much. I can't be too slow because I want to get it all put together, and then I'm going to want to mash it together a little bit to make sure I mean, the glue dries relatively quickly, so, but it's not instant. So you do have a little bit of wiggle room, but not much, because it can be instant if you put it on there and like that other side is already dry. For the most part. And see how I picked it up? Now I just want to make sure everything's nice and snug in there. Hopefully, last one, the first one I did, my band-aid kind of stuck and I was just dangling it, so that was kind of fun. But I'm trying to get it as close as I can in here, and this is real aggravating. Now, notice I didn't glue the top because I'm going to let this side and the bottom down here really set up a little bit before I go in here. And I'm going to touch this top part and seal it all in together using the capillary. Just get it down in there. Now we're going to mash it together. And hopefully I can get it nice and straight. And even so, it looks pretty straight. Now for that extra little bit of pressure, just going to let that sit there for a moment. Making sure, see, because now it forced that up. So now there'll be no seam line in there, which is going to be nice. It's going to be a pain in the butt to sand because it's look like it's meant to be a fabric material. Alright, now here we go with this again. I'm going to get a little bit of, trying to keep it in the shot. So we're going to hit this groove here. Hit this groove here. And we're going to see if that's enough to keep it nice and stable. Line up our little pegs here and there so that we're good to go. Might be just a touch high. No, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So see, I almost stuck my band-aid in there again. And just to push it all down in there. Looks like we're pretty straight. Make sure we're down. Alright. So, 2 seats. And I am using a Vallejo primer. I like it. It seems to work pretty good for me. I like it. Some people don't. I do. It's cheap. It's readily available here. So yeah, we're gonna run with that. So it just brought out some of the detail in the cockpit, and I was impressed when I saw it. So, okay, to the spray booth. With this part, after I painted it, I think this is duraluminum, I think. But what I did do is I came in here. Let me get it down here and get it right so you can see it. Is I did file off the edge because it connects right here. So after I painted, I came in here with a sanding stick and just kind of went around and got most of, you know, what's going to make contact. And also what I have to do is I'm going to do the same thing here because these two pieces fit together. Now, trying to get all the paint in here, because that's why I repainted them, is because I didn't get the corners in here quite good enough for my taste. If you're gluing paint together, well, the paint will come off the part and it's a weak bond. So you need, using plastic cement, you've got to use plastic on plastic. So I'm going to have to go over all of this and just lightly, because I don't want to take any plastic away. I just want to get rid of all the paint. I mean, I'm using a rough grit. This is Lowe's 320 grit. You know, you normally use sand wood with this. So I just want to take off the, careful not to take off the nub here that connects the two pieces. But, you know, I got that. Get this. Alright. So, yeah. See how I got a little bit of paint? I got some paint on there, and I'm just, that's it. That's all I'm doing to it. Nothing else. You can see where I'm just rubbing the paint off, because that's all I need is the paint to be off. I don't want to go into the plastic or anything like that, because then I'm going to misshape it when all I want to do is knock the paint off it. I mean, some people take a knife to it, where you just take the knife and see, like we got this end piece here, and you can and now it's on the blade. So you can do it that way. But for me, it just feels like it just, I don't know. You see that little bit of paint that might be on there? I just don't feel like I'm good enough to do that without gashing into the part. Because if you don't hold that blade exactly perpendicular when you're dragging it, see, all that paint is gone well enough for me to glue. I am just gonna set one part down, grab my trusty glue, a little off to the side here, and then it might take a couple of coats. Get it in a whole little bit. And I would really rather it run down the outside if it runs, so it doesn't mess up the paint. Now I'm going to put a little bit on this side of the part to also soften up the plastic. She's trying to wiggle on me because it does evaporate pretty quick. Now, but it is working chemically. And it'll stick. And it'll go quick. That's another problem, is it will go quick. But there's also the capillary action, which is after we get it together. Now the key being we got to get it straight though. We want it straight, because once it starts to grab and once it starts to really bond, it's on. It's not coming off, because it's not like super glue where you're going to break the bond of the glue. You're just going to break the glue because it's brittle. Because what we're doing here is we are welding. Essentially, we are welding these two parts together, and I'm just trying to get them straight so that, and I'm more concerned about this end than the other end. But now what we do is we take a little bit of glue, because the capillary action will suck it down into that crack, I hope, and make it glue even better. But still worried about the whole getting this on here straight more than I am actually getting it together. Because the glue will work, because I'm putting enough pressure on it with my hand where I don't know if you can see it or not, how it's evaporating. I mean, it is evaporating just about as fast as it hits the part. And I'm being real messy about this because I'm you're never going to see this. This is on the inside, but it is straight on this end. And it is probably about as straight as it's going to get. See, now it still will move. Just a hair. But, and now, and I had already sanded these once, but I don't know how much paint got on there since I. Now, we'll go around this way, like that. Now I'm going to grab the part I already sanded. And in it goes. Alright, now, making sure the front's straight while I still got a little bit of wiggle room. Pinching it together best I can. And we're golden. See, and also on this part, there is where I clipped it. I didn't even trim it with a knife or anything. And I think my nippers are getting old. I got these nippers in a all-in-one. Like, you get a little box of tools and it's like, okay, here you can make a Gundam. And you get nippers and knives and sanding sticks and stuff like that. They work great, but they've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 models. And I know for a fact you can get these nippers at Walmart for like $4 or $5. I think it's exactly like $4.95. Now, not the best nippers, but they are flush side cutters. They're, I don't know if they might be sharp point. They might be sharp tipped flush side cutters. When I put these together, and I'm going to clean up the nubs a little bit, like I haven't even touched them on this. So they're pretty pronounced nubs, like they stand out pretty good. But on this one, on this side, when I clean them up, there's going to be a hole where right in there, when I smooth this all out. Now I'm trying to save these panel lines because they're going to look good when I paint it and I put a wash on it and bring them out. But there's a hole in there, so when this gets smooth and I paint it, there's going to be a divot there. Now, after I use my technique with the glue and I squeeze them together real good, you won't see that line, but I'll have to go over it and gently take that seam, because once I squeeze it together after I glue it, there won't be a gap or a line. There'll be just some glue. And if I get it straight enough and close enough and tight enough, there might not be any gap and there might not be a line because it just fill in. I have to do one of the details that I have been known to forget when I was younger, when I was doing it many moons ago, which is, wait a minute, this isn't the right set. Ah, so I'm still missing a set. I've got 2 sets. I bought a pin vise, which is basically a little hand drill for hobby stuff. Now this is one that came with one of those all-in-one kits. I'm going to talk about that in another video, about getting your first kit and starting from nothing, but that won't be in there because I'm going to talk about bare necessities, where I think you can build your first Gundam kit for about $20. So, just to, because I mean that's the bare bones minimum, but I've still got to go to the store and hunt down some fingernail files and buffers and things like that. So, I'm going to need to find my tweezers to get this out of here. But, in the instructions, before you put these 2 halves of the fuselage together, got to remove, that's the indicator at the beginning of the instructions that says open holes. Now these holes are circular. There's a couple of different sizes. So I'm going to start with the smaller size. Now they are actually, there is actually a, there's markers in the fuselage. So you can kind of see right there is a, there's a hole. Well, a divot anyway. There's another one. So I'm going to get my pin vise and take care of this. Okay. So I've got my little pin vise set up. I've already drilled out the center hole. So the smaller holes. So that one is done. Now I picked one that fits inside of the divots. That way I know I got the right size to start with. Now we're just giving it a little, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of pressure. It's with the divot there, so we get that done. I'm not putting hardly any pressure on this. It's just letting the drill do the work. Now all these bits, they're specialty bits, you know, you can't get them at the hardware store because they're tiny. They range from 0.8 millimeter is the smallest I have with this set, but they do go up to like an 1/8 inch or something like that. So we're through, and now we have a nice hole, which all I have to do now is clean this up a little, which shouldn't be too bad. Just a quick little trim up with my knife. And like I said, I'm not worried about the hole at the moment because right now I'm just trying to trim off the big stuff so that I can get in there with a little piece of sanding sponge and I don't have to work on it so much, because there is some detail. These panel lines are indeed inset, so they are recessed, but there's still detail that I don't want to sand away like some of these rivets. But they feel recessed too. Either way, I don't want to sand out any of the detail because I'm really hoping to keep a lot of the detail, since on the F-14 I really didn't have much detail. So there's that. See, another great thing about these little sponges, they're just sponges, so I can just do whatever I want to with it. They're all cleaned up enough where I'm happy with it, since I'm going to be plugging stuff into it. And I used a light enough sanding grit where primer will cover that right up. So I'm not worried about that. Alright, and on to the next phase.